Ladies and gentlemen, Ilia Topuria has vacated the featherweight title. Also, Shavkat Rakhmonov is not fighting for the welterweight title against Belal Muhammad, despite beating Ian Gary and guaranteed a title fight. This is not a joke. Buckle your seatbelts because people are going crazy over the breaking news of two main events, one at UFC 314 and the other at UFC 315. We're going to get into these topics and more next.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the TCMMA Podcast with your host, Chris Cross.
Whoa!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege. Privilege. Privilege.
What up, what up? This is your boy Chris Cross checking in. This is the TCMMA Podcast, and what an interesting day in the world of MMA. So you go to bed last night. Well, we did the podcast yesterday, right? Everything is seemingly normal. All the UFC champions are calling each other out, right? You saw the podcast yesterday. How's this going to play out? Then all of a sudden you wake up today. You wake up today and everybody is going crazy.
They're going crazy!
Ilia Topuria vacated the featherweight title.
Boo! Woo!
It's unbelievable. And then Shavkat isn't fighting for the welterweight title?
Are you serious?
What is happening? What is happening here? It's like everything has just hit the fan.
Chaos.
Absolute chaos.
Chaos.
So that's where things stand right now. So Topuria vacated the belt. He is not going to be defending the featherweight title. He's moving up to lightweight. This might be why yesterday Islam said he's got some big news, coming. Another short guy wants to fight. Another short guy gets smashed. And what other short guy is he talking about? Of course, Volkanovski's in there, but he's not fighting him again. It's got to be Topuria. And Islam can't go up to welterweight now because Belal is going to fight Jack Della Maddalena in the main event there. So all these things are happening, are circulating very quickly. These are two title fights that we did not expect to see. And all of a sudden, the year of the champion has this ripple effect. We're going to have a new champion in the featherweight division. And then we got Belal defending at 315 in the welterweight. So things are shaking up right now. Everybody's shook up trying to figure this stuff out. Why is Shavkat not fighting? We're going to get into that in a minute. But first, let's dive into UFC 314 as we process all this. Because now at UFC 314 in the main event, you got a very interesting situation. Volkanovski is going to be fighting Diego Lopes. This is a rising up-and-comer Brazilian fighting in Miami, where there's going to be a heavy Brazilian crowd. Make no mistake about it. And although this is probably not what Dana White and the UFC expected, all of a sudden you got a very intriguing situation because the Brazilian crowd is going to come out in droves to the Casaya Center in Miami, which I believe is where it's at, to root for the Brazilian to win the title. We see the Brazil crowd is crazy anyway, but now you get a title fight that supersedes all the other fights throughout the year. This is a big opportunity for Brazil to capture the title in a huge featherweight division. And you know what I say, don't invite Brazil to the party. It could be a problem. So let's jump into this fight prediction right now. In the featherweight division for the featherweight division vacant title at UFC 314. You're hearing this right. You got Alexander Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopes. The title was vacated by Ilia Topuria, who's going to move up to the lightweight division. So take that all in, breathe for a minute. Now let's get into it because you got the Australian former champ versus the up-and-comer Brazilian Diego Lopes, who's 26-6. So you got 26-4 versus 26-6. And this is one of those situations, don't invite Brazil to the party because it could be a problem. So let's see if this holds true in this fight. Diego Lopes, 5 inches taller at 5'11". Volkanovski's 36. Lopes, 30. Lopes has a 1-inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed. Volkanovski, 6.2 significant strikes per minute to 4.2 for Lopes. Also, Volkanovski lands nearly 2 takedowns over the course of 3 rounds. And Lopes gets like 1 every 6. So he's trying to keep the fight standing. But either way, it seems like if you look at the averages over the career, that Lopes is at a disadvantage. Volkanovski, 70% takedown defense. Now, he's lost 3 of the last 4 fights, but 2 of those are to Islam Makhachev and 1's to Ilia Topuria. So, do you count those against him? I mean, we know he's not as good as those 2, but those 2 are really, really good, right? He did beat Yair Rodriguez by 3rd round KO. You go back to 2022 when he was just dominating. He beat Korean Zombie by KO and took Max Holloway to a 5-round decision victory where he landed 199 significant strikes. Before that, he'd be guys like Brian Ortega, Max Holloway. You know, they fought several times. So you all know that. Diego Lopes, 52% takedown defense. That's going to be a problem. But the guy wins. He's won 5 in a row, beating Brian Ortega last time out by decision. 106 significant strikes with 1 takedown. Beat Dan Ige by decision. That was a little closer, 49-42 in significant strikes, 1 takedown to none. He KO'd Sadiq Yusuf. That was a big one. And KO'd Pat Sabatini. So, you know, the guy's doing what he's supposed to do, but can he get in there and beat Alexander Volkanovski? That's the question. And that question is going to be answered. Now, if you think Diego Lopes is going to win, then you have to believe that Volkanovski's 36-year-old, situation, the fact that he's getting older, is a major factor in this fight. Because if you look at the numbers, and Volkanovski's 32 right now instead of 36, Volkanovski wins this fight. But it appears that he's gotten slower over the last few fights. Or is that just because Islam is so good and Ilia Topuria is so good? Well, you have some of that too. So there's a big question mark here for Volkanovski. I can tell you that I think a lot of people are going to be rooting for Diego Lopes in this fight just because if Volkanovski is the champ, we really know he's not the true champ because Topuria beat him, right? But he could still be the next best in this division. But the crowd is going to be supporting the Brazilian. This thing is in Miami, where I'm telling you there are a lot of Brazilians. Make no mistake about it. And don't invite Brazil to the party if you don't want them to wreck shop, especially for a title fight. Now, Volkanovski could win this fight. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to lean towards the true contender here because Volkanovski was a former champ. So when I say contender, it's vacated. So they're both contenders, but in terms of a true contender, Diego Lopes is trending right now. He's perfectly right in the prime, right where he needs to be. And I'm going to lean towards him to win this fight, although I think it's going to be much closer than Volkanovski's last 2 fights against Topuria and Islam Makhachev. I think this thing may go the distance, or we get a late stoppage in rounds 4 or 5. But I don't see Volkanovski going down without a battle here. He's got a chance to win back the belt. Yeah, it's not against Topuria. Yeah, it's not a lightweight title against Islam. But he can at least salvage the career at this point. Not that he needs to do so, but salvage the career from a standpoint that he can win back the belt and maybe eventually retire with the belt as he gets to be 37, 38 years old. He's still a problem in this division, and he's still the top contender behind Topuria when Topuria was a champ. So, we'll see how this plays out, but I'm leaning with the crowd support for the Brazilian, Diego Lopes. I think that carries him over the top. He wins 3 rounds to 2. It's going to be one of those where we're waiting on the decision, and we don't know who's going to win. That's how close it's going to be. but I like Diego Lopez to win 3 rounds to 2. Notice I'm not saying he's going to outstrike Volkanovski or have more takedowns, but he's going to win 3 rounds out of 5 or 3 rounds to 2 to capture the featherweight title here in the main event at UFC 314. And I'm telling you now, for this fight, I will have my shirt on. Look at the products below this video. I will have my shirt on that says, "Don't invite Brazil," in big letters. Don't invite Brazil to the party. I'm going to have my shirt on because I'm going to be rooting for Diego Lopez, and I'm going to be rooting for all the Brazilians down in South Florida who are getting ready to go crazy for this fight. It's not the fight we expected, but Brazil is going crazy right now, and I'm happy for them because there's a lot of Brazilians in Miami. I mean, there's a lot of Hispanics in Miami, if you didn't know, but there's also a lot of Brazilians in Miami, and this is a big opportunity. And you're taking on, one of the best in the division outside of what was Ilia Topuria as champ, right? You beat Volkanovski, you're the best in the division. Topuria is saying he cannot make the weight anymore. He doesn't want to try to make the weight. He wants to go to lightweight, and he's accomplished everything he needs to accomplish. And I support him in his move up to lightweight. That's what you do. You win the belt and you defend it a few times, move on up if you can. And that's what Topuria has done, but it opens the door for Brazil to win another UFC title. And I promise you, the Brazilian fans are going to be in full support at the Casaya Center in Miami. Very exciting. Go Brazil. Now, as we move on to UFC 315, Shavkat Rakhmonov is out. He is not fighting in the main event against Belal Muhammad. People are going crazy, more so about this fight. I mean, it's not completely surprising that Topuria vacated the belt. I mean, you already know he has plans to move up, but it's still surprising. But this one is more or less outrageous because Shavkat, much like a Hamzat Chimaev, has a huge following. People believe he already is the champ. It's just a matter of, not if, but when. And he did what he had to do, fighting Ian Gary on really short notice, beating him in a great fight, proving that that's going to be an epic matchup. And all of a sudden, we get the news that it's Belal versus JDM, Jack Della Maddalena. And people are like, what happened to Shav? People are going so crazy that Shavkat had to issue a statement, which was probably pushed behind the scenes by the UFC. Of course, this is speculation. But when you read the statement and it says something like, the UFC offered me first, but due to injury, I had to pull out. I mean, that sounds like someone told me I had to write that because the people are going so crazy about this. They're not happy about JDM fighting for the title because everyone believes it's Shavkat's title to lose at this point, and now he's out. And what's confusing about this is if it's a big injury, you would think Shavkat would have told us all. Okay, that didn't happen. And maybe it is a big injury, but that leads you to believe that it's a minor injury of where they could have waited 2 or 3 months, give Shavkat some more time, and let him fight. But instead, you got Shavkat on the sidelines for at least 6 to 8 months. And if this fight, is a tough fight, and both of these guys get potentially 6-month submissions, whoever wins, then you got Shavkat looking at 9 or 10 months before he fights. As he said, later in the year. So people are obviously upset about this situation, but it is what it is. This is what we got. We got Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena coming to us. And, it's a big opportunity for JDM. Make no mistake about it. Just like it is for Diego Lopez at 314. So how's this thing going to shake out? I can tell you this, Belal Muhammad has looked much different since training with Team Khabib, but does that mean he can fend off a rising 17-2 Jack Della Maddalena? Well, let's find out. In the welterweight division for the welterweight division title at UFC 315, you're seeing this right, Belal Muhammad versus JDM, Jack Della Maddalena. And this has fans up in arms because Shavkat is not in the mix. But hold on for a minute because Muhammad is the champ. He's 24-3 from Palestine. Jack Della Maddalena from Australia. He's 17-2. So he's no slouch. Both guys 5'11. Belal's 36, so he's slowly getting up there. JDM, 28 years old, still relatively young, just entering the prime window. So he's still got a long way to go in terms of hitting his prime, his peak performance. JDM's got a 1-inch reach advantage, 73-72. He's a switch stance fighter. Belal stands right-handed. JDM 6.7 significant strikes per minute to 4.4 for Belal. The takedown game is all Belal Muhammad and looked way better since joining with Team Khabib, right? In terms of training, that takedown game is even more of a problem than it ever has been before. Belal Muhammad, aka remember the name, 89% takedown defense, beat Leon Edwards with those 9 takedowns. I mean that's crazy to win the belt. 68-47 on the feet, 9 takedowns to 2. He can just take away your strike game if you can't defend the takedowns. He also beat Gilbert Burns. No takedowns either way, 132-81 in significant strikes. But then you see all of a sudden he gets with Team Khabib and he's landed 9 takedowns. He beat Sean Brady, Vicente Luke, Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia. This is a guy, much like Charles Oliveira a few years ago, who hit his stride. Right? You may look at the previous record and say, well, you know, he couldn't beat Leon the first time, had the no contest, lost to Jeff Neal, lost to Vicente Luke the first time, lost to Alan Jouban at the very beginning. But then he hit his stride, took the belt, riding a 6-fight win streak. JDM, 70% takedown defense, and boy, he's going to need all of that. KO'd Gilbert Burns in the 3rd round, despite Burns having 7 takedowns. So more on that in a second, because that's an important stat. JDM lost to Kevin Holland, or beat Kevin Holland by split decision, but trailed by 22 significant strikes in that fight. That's pretty wild. Beat Basil Hafez by split decision. Randy Brown submission. Danny Roberts he KO'd. And this guy hasn't lost in the UFC yet, winning 8 straight. But hold on a minute. JDM's going to be around for a while. And if you're sometimes guys like this capture the title because there's an opening. There's a window here. And you're talking about, you got Ian Gary in the mix, Shavkat Rakhmonov. These guys seemingly are going to be the future champs, right? If Shavkat gets the title, maybe JDM never wins it, but now the gates have opened. You get this opportunity on a silver platter. And this is a time when a guy like JDM has got to capture the title, but I don't think it's going to happen. As much as I like Jack Della Maddalena and would like to see him win, Belal Muhammad, since joining Team Khabib, is a whole different person. He's going to take those significant strikes from JDM and just wipe them out with control time and the takedown game. And we discussed this before. It's much like a football team running out the 4th quarter, just running the ball. You got the lead. We're just going to run the ball, not give it back to you, and chew up this clock. And that's kind of the way Belal Muhammad looks right now. And, it might drive you crazy because there's not a lot of action. And he's got the head on the hip and he's taking you down and he's riding you and he's, position over submission and all that stuff. But it works if you can't stop it. And I don't think JDM can, because you go back to that Gilbert Burns fight and he gave up 7 takedowns. Yeah, he still won. But Belal's a different animal. And those skills are going to be a problem for JDM. I'm really interested in seeing how this plays out. But I got to lean towards Belal Muhammad to get the victory, both in the strike game, which he'll equalize, but really with the control time. We're looking at over 10 to 15 minutes of control time, 9 to 10 takedowns if necessary to win this fight. That's the bottom line. It's not going to be easy, but he's going to make it look easy on his way to getting the win here, retaining the belt, probably by decision, and moving to 25-3. And then we'll see Shavkat hopefully after that. But that all remains to be seen. We got to get through this fight first. Belal wins. Again, to move to 25-3 here, welterweight division, main event at UFC 315. As good of a striker as Jack Della Maddalena is, and the fact that he's very capable of winning this fight, I think the experience for Belal Muhammad carries him to victory. And I think the fact that he's with Team Khabib and he looked so much better in that title fight against Leon Edwards, goes a long way. I mean, JDM is a pure striker, and if strikers can't defend takedowns, which he gave up 7 against Gilbert Burns, this fight is going to be a problem for him. And I think Belal Muhammad skates freely to victory in this one. I mean, it's just that simple. Would it be nice to see JDM win the belt? Yeah, this is his opportunity. I mean, the gates are wide open to walk through and capture the belt. You may lose it to Shavkat. You may lose it to Ian Gary. Who knows how the future plays out? But when a guy like Shavkat, from what we're being told anyway, can't fight, this is your opportunity to capture the belt. And JDM is going to be in the best shape of his life, make no mistake about it, to try to win the belt. So that's what's happened in the UFC. We've had chaos reign overnight with Topuria vacating the belt and JDM getting the title fight opportunity in the welterweight division over Shavkat, who is now on hold. And I get it. I'm not as I like Shavkat not as much as Hamza, but if it comes out that Hamza isn't fighting for the title, and then we find out later that Hamza releases a statement and says I was offered first, but due to injury, I'm going to be going crazy. So I get why Shavkat Rakhmonov fans are going crazy today. That he is not fighting for the title. It's like, okay, if he can't fight for the title, what's the major injury that's holding him back? And is it like a 1 to 2 month injury that, the UFC could kind of wait on him a little bit? Then that's a problem. Or is it a serious injury that's going to cost 4 to 6 months? That's different. So people will be waiting for answers on this. We don't have them just yet because the injury hasn't been disclosed, at least from the research we've done. But I'm sure we'll be hearing more on this really today, throughout the day, and in the coming days. But that's the way things stand right now. So that's going to do it for today's show. We'll be back with more. I'm sure there'll be a lot of comments on these videos, and we'll get back into the Q&A and break this thing down either later in the week, this weekend, or early next week as we head into another fight night and we got time to talk about these topics. So stay tuned. For now, this your boy Chris Cross. Have a great day, and God bless. As always, peace.